A senior Department of Defense official says UFOs are demonic and we should not be pursuing them. Luis Elizondo, former intelligence officer with the Department of Defense, former director of AATIP, Pentagon's previous UFO program from 2010 to 17, states, no, it's not Lou who believes UFOs are demonic, but instead tells a story of someone else within the government who had this belief. Elizondo, along with colleagues Christopher Mellon, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, and Steve Justice, a recently retired Director of Advanced Systems at Lockheed Skunk Works, when they all began speaking publicly about the UFO phenomenon in 2017. So as you can understand, this is, of course, a very serious, stern, and significant warning. In doing so, they join many others with verified high-ranking backgrounds from within government who publicly comment on the subject, voicing their concerns that the phenomenon is real and that the public has a right to know about this. From the perspective of a citizen, quote, why have UFOs been kept secret, unquote, is a difficult question to answer. Yes, there is the possibility that there are corporate and financial elite interests tied to this phenomenon who would like to capitalize on it and or influence the perception of citizens regarding the phenomenon for ulterior motives, but perhaps that is not true. It's not something we hear about from all whistleblowers who have come forward. So what's going on? It's difficult to know. Only a small group of people seem to control the secrecy around this subject. And this subject does not have anything, it's not only significant for the United States. We have UFOs sighted all over the world. Now, a common theme seems to be that one large reason for the secrecy is perhaps the implications it has on culture and religion. Multiple whistleblowers over the years told us that governments know that the phenomenon is controlled by non-human intelligence. And the video here in the 15-minute mark of the interview, New York Post, Elizondo speaks about a meeting he had with a senior Department of Defense official who told him that there are people within government who do not want information about the subject to get out due to the officials' philosophical and religious belief systems. Quote, I remember the conversation very well, he says. This is a person I respected tremendously, very senior person. He told me, he said, we already know what it is. I said, okay, sir, so is it ours? And he said, no, that's not what I'm saying. And he asked me point blank, have you read your Bible lately? And I wasn't quite sure where he was going with that. And I said, where are you going with this? He said, well, then you know that these are demonic and we should not be pursuing them. He wasn't kidding. That's exactly how he felt. Lou then goes to emphasize that no matter what it is, we need to figure it out. Of course we do. There was a time when the church could not even look through the telescope of Galileo because it conflicted with their narrative. And this is something we have been dealing with for a long time. Imagine the first person that decided to get on a boat and sail over the horizon. Right, there's discussion of sea monsters and krakens and that will devour you and destroy your boat, etc. And yet, we did it anyways. So we did sail and explore the world, and it turns out, 500 years later, there really are sea monsters, except for we call them the great squid in the Pacific, and we call them great white sharks and whales. Now, they're just a part of nature. They have a scientific name. But he says, these sea monsters still exist. They're there. We just learn to understand them, and maybe this is the same thing. Maybe this is just yet another expedition over the horizon in which we're going to realize what we thought were monsters are really just neighbors. Now, it begs a question. Is humanity ready for this disclosure? Regardless of the answer, it is happening. And the writer says, I believe that we are, and I do not like the idea of high-ranking officials who are guided by their belief systems dictating what these objects present. I don't feel comfortable with a small group of people determining whether or not humanity is ready for such exploration. Why should they decide? Throughout history, we continually go through paradigm-shifting moments, and every time we deny them and shy away from them as a way of holding on to beliefs. Is this human nature? or something we can overcome with awareness. The UFO subject and its disclosure of it and the mainstream level represents just that, the paradigm-shifting moment that calls into question what we thought we knew about the nature of our reality. Are we open to this? Here's another great quote from Dr. Eric Davis that may provide some insight as well. Davis, a renowned astrophysicist who worked with the Pentagon UFO program, states that he gave a classified briefing to a Defense Department agency as recently as March 2020 about retrievals from off-world vehicles not made on this earth, quote unquote. He said, I think there's a lot of evidence that the government has known, but the problem is it's so outside the realm of human comprehension that they cannot deal with it on a legislative basis. They can't deal with it on a military operational basis. They can't deal with it on the basis of a presidential policy. Being a researcher, he says, in the field for more than 15 years, stories of beings associated with these objects range from what can be perceived as very benevolent to malevolent. I got it out, sorry. There are all kinds of stories out there, some which have very interesting corroborations among multiple supposed experiences, quote unquote. Perhaps all of these objects are not from one place or the same species. Perhaps we've been visited by intelligent life from other galaxies and universes, other dimensions. Perhaps some are interplanetary. There's so much of our reality that we can't perceive with our senses. Perhaps they exist there on Earth, but on these other realms, other dimensions, we can't perceive with our senses. The topic is quite vast and leaves no aspect of humanity untouched. The latest program disclosed by U.S. Defense Department is the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon UAP Task Force. The Department of the Navy, under the cognizance of the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security, is currently leading that program. New York Post interviewed Elizondo explains why many things and some that's not novel. One of them is the Navy, as well as other military branches, have encountered these objects on a daily basis. Prior to mainstream UFO disclosure we've seen in the past couple of years, this was already quite evident. There are tens and thousands of pages of declassified documents describing military encounters with UFOs. These documents contain radar tracking data, pictures, and now videos that have been released, as well as testimony from the pilots involved. So this is nothing new, although it may be new in the public eye. It's been something that has been happening since man was able to take flight. The phenomenon reported is something real and not visionary or fictitious. There are objects probably approximating the shape of a disc of such appreciable size as to appear to be as large as a man-made aircraft. The reported operating characteristics, such as extreme rates of climb, maneuverability, particularly in roll, and the actions which must be considered evasive when sighted or contacted by friendly aircraft and radar, lend belief to the possibility that some of these objects are controlled either manually, automatically, or remotely. This is what General Nathan Twining said back in 1947. That was the year of the Roswell UFO incident on July 4th. 1947. The phenomenon has also been documented in the printing press in times of antiquity prior to the time of our modern day technology. So they had them since antiquity. We even had Alexander the Great having UFO contact. He took his army into the Taklamakan desert of China because he was told that he would have a UFO encounter there. And even though he lost 10,000 of his soldiers, he went there. And let's remember, he was supposedly given the lightning rod of Zeus, a very significant super weapon. And his generals said that they buried it, and they gave a copy of it to, a copy of it is actually in one of the Nepal Buddhist monasteries. Now, so they had these extraterrestrials, UFOs since antiquity. And let's remember the ancient Greeks believed that the gods of Olympus were actually Atlanteans and extraterrestrials. Now, it's even seen in historic pieces of artwork. It's safe to say that the phenomenon has been observed for a very long time, yet only now are we taking this seriously. It's quite clear that governments around the world have been studying this phenomenon while keeping humanity in the dark about it. Intelligence agencies in the US are set to disclose what they know about the phenomenon very soon, but any information beyond what's already known among many ufologists is not to be expected. It's safe to assume that a wealth of information will be kept classified, of course, for national security reasons. JFK said, "We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighs the dangers which are cited to justify it, and there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment." And this is on Humans Are Free. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. This is by Arjun Walia. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.